Happy holidays and welcome to the Village of Addison Year in Review 2022. This is our 35th Year in Review program here on Addison Community Television. We're very happy to have you along with us during this holiday season. I'm Don Weiss, and joining me, as he has done for 10 of those Year in Review programs, hard to believe, is the Mayor of the Village of Addison, Rich Veenstra. Hello, Mayor Veenstra, welcome and happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you and everyone out there.
Thank you very much. We had a great year in 2022. We're going to go through most of it. I'm sure there'll be some things that we missed along the way, but these are definitely the highlights and very important. Yeah. Some things that we've talked about during this past year. Probably our biggest event of 2022, Mayor, was Addison hosted a huge national sporting event. Tell us about this event and what the ultimate benefit was to the community.
Well, it was the Women's Championship Bowling Tournament, and it is a very, very big deal. It's the biggest bowling event nationally. There were over 30,000 participants in it. And Addison, most people don't realize, has the largest bowling alley in the United States with consecutive lanes.
At Stardust Bowl.
At Stardust Bowl, yeah. And the DuPage Convention and Visitors Bureau worked very diligently with the village and all of DuPage County to secure a bid for this event. And we're in fairly good company because the year prior, it was hosted in Reno, and this coming year it'll be in Las Vegas. So I guess Reno and Vegas has moved up into our category now. So.
Right.
But so it was a really big event, and it was a huge economic boom to the entire county, and brought in, they were estimating somewhere around $11 million in proceeds from hotels, rentals, restaurants, and our local establishments certainly benefited from that.
Right. We talked with some of those business owners along the way. The event was here from late April until early July, and in that 70-day period, there are a lot of people who needed to go, to restaurants and hotels, food and drink, attractions. We even had people come to the historical museum and visit from the bowling tournament. So it was a great impact to our community. Yeah,
it was very interesting in that, the mix was a very positive one in terms of people wanted to go out and see the community, and so it was a real win-win for the Bowling Congress as well as for DuPage County and Addison.
Very good, excellent, and we were very happy to host them here in Addison. Let's talk about some community development projects right now, Mayor, and I think maybe we'll start right within our own backyard here at the Village Green. The Green family residence was sold. The property's been turned over. It's now in the hands of the Village of Addison, and there are plans underway for the southwest corner of Lake Street and Addison Road as a future extension of our Village Green. Tell us what some of your plans are for that, because I know you've been working on this a long time.
Yeah, this is something that we've talked about for quite a while, and one of the concepts that we're very, very committed to is that we need to have an area where we can recreate, celebrate, get together, and the Village Green has really expanded over recent years to meet that need. But one of the things that we've felt that has been lacking is really recognition for our veterans. And we have Veterans Circle by Walgreens, but it's in an awkward position. It's very difficult to have any event there because of the space constraints, the noise from the intersection. So we felt that a much more appropriate place for that kind of a memorial would be on the village site, on the Village Green. So part of our thought process was if we could obtain the property all the way up to Addison Road and Lake Street, it would expand our Village Green, but also give us a very visible area for the Veterans Memorial. So that was the ultimate plan, is to expand the Village Green, but also to recognize the veterans with a memorial that we could be proud of.
And that didn't happen overnight. It was actually a very unique exchange of land. There was a developer who desired the property to the immediate south, and they needed a certain amount of land, some of which the village had, some of which was privately owned. So that occurred. That was the Panattoni Development Company. That occurred, and then the village was able to get their parcel, their 2 acres up at the intersection, which will be the home to the Veterans Monument.
And it worked out well for us because the parcel that we obtained was more valuable in terms of real estate than the parcel that we traded off with them. And The concern that we had at first was the old parcel was the launch site for our fireworks, but we have very good intergovernmental relations, and the park district said you can use our property, and last year was kind of a trial for us, and it went very well. So
would you say this is sort of keeping in some scope with the town center, the idea of that recreating area that you just mentioned earlier, a public thoroughfare? Town centers have a lot of that. They have the private commercial sector area, but then they also have public gathering places too. So this is kind of keeping in line with the town center project.
it is, and every community has a hallmark of who they are, or there's an identity. And over the years, Rock and Wheels has really become a very visible part of Addison during the summer months. And the thought process was, let's continue to expand the utilization of that property for our community, but also to establish an identity throughout DuPage County as far as a go-to place for fun, recreation, and other events.
Very good. Turning to our commercial corridor and some projects which are valiantly trying to get completed and hopefully will be in 2023. Let's take a look out to the west. There is a new restaurant that is nearly ready to open. It's the A&W restaurant. We've talked about this some time ago. What's the status of the project there, Mayor? Where do you see that landing in terms of 2023?
Yeah. Well, as almost every project that we undertake or are involved with, there's always delays. And the pandemic certainly had an effect on a lot of what goes on in our community. So there were supply chain issues. There were a lot of delays in A&W actually opening. They should have been open during the summer of last year, and those problems occurred. They are well underway now, and they've gone through all of the final inspections, so we're expecting that spring of the coming year, 2023, they should be open for business, and we should be able to get our root beers.
All right, that'll be awesome, because those are great. There is a new business coming into Addison along the Swift Road Army Trail 355 corridor called Quick Trip. Can you tell us about Quick Trip and why that parcel is so critical for its future development at the Army Trail and Swift Road intersection?
Well, that parcel long ago, actually when I first became mayor, there was a real push for a truck stop there, and we did not want a truck stop. We didn't think that was the highest and best use for that property. We said no to the developer that owned the property at that point. It's transitioned, changed hands. Quick Trip came to us about a year and a half ago. They are a national gas station purveyor. They also have diesel and truck stops in their selection of businesses throughout the country. We told them we didn't want a truck stop. They came in with a proposal that gave us a substantial amount of traditional auto pumps, and I think there's 6 to 8 diesel pumps in there. They understand that it's not an overnight or a place for trucks to stop or just idle for inordinate amount of time.
Right.
So what they proposed was a planned unit development where, in addition to the Quick Trip, they also are going to be looking at hotel development and a upscale restaurant development. So it's part of a planned unit development that gives us a lot of different things that we really were looking for in that area.
Let's talk about something that's been on our agenda when we visit monthly, and that is what we affectionately call Fuddruckers. I imagine there's probably a fair bit of people in our audience who don't even know what that was, but it was a restaurant on Rawling Road just south of Lake Street. And I know it's been an issue to deal with, not a good one, for the last several years. Can you kind of give us an update on this? Maybe this will be the last time we talk about it, for all I know. But
Well, there'll be nothing to talk about on Ask the Mayor.
that's right, if we don't have Fuddruckers, right?
But I think this is a good example of some people don't have a good grasp on the extent and the needs of doing a development, and they have a good idea, and Fuddruckers is an example. It was for sale. An individual purchased it with the idea of making it a Indian restaurant and banquet hall, which sounded like a good idea at the time. But they didn't take into account the cost of rehabbing the existing building and complying with ordinances and building guidelines that are part of our requirements. And so over the years, there have been starts and stops. They have tried to move forward. Each time they've run into problems either financially or in compliance with agreed upon guidelines for the development of that property. And so that's been on and off for several years. At this point, they are actually in the process of selling the property.
We'll turn to some residential projects right now, and there is a lot of things have been happening, and a lot of things are planned in the future. Some of these we've seen them grow in just the last couple of years, and they've been doing quite well. Let's begin at the Army Trail and Mill Road intersection at that northwest corner there. The Enclave at Mill Creek was a plan that was on the books for many years, and it's finally near completion, I think, at this point. What is the status of Enclave?
Yeah, they only have about 4 or 5 units left to sell. They have done a remarkable job. They built on a lot of golf balls I left there.
That's right.
Par 3 golf course.
I'll bet.
But that was a project that we were hopeful for. We weren't too sure how successful they would be. But they have done a remarkable job in build out. They have expanded into a phase 3 that will be starting shortly. And the quality of the homes and the price point was very
huge price point.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
So we were very pleasantly surprised to see how quickly they sold and at what price. So it says a lot about the desirability of coming into Addison. And that was a problem that we identified several years ago, is that our housing stock was very limited in its selection and availability of different types, downsizing. And what we saw was not uncommon for second and third generation families to live in Addison. And, Grandma and Grandpa really didn't want to leave, but the housing market didn't provide options for them. But with projects like this and Clarendale and others that we've put up recently, we've met that need.
Now, their next phase, as you mentioned, is called the Towns at Mill Creek, under construction at this time, and these will be townhomes that will complement that, right?
Yeah, 4 and 6 unit buildings. In fact, they have already completed the infrastructure, and they will be starting 2 model home buildings going up very shortly. So in the spring, that should be completed, and we'll actually see then the last phase of the Enclave Meredith development.
Nice transition then from the single family to the townhome, all within one development right there, and they complement each other well. Very good. Over to the what used to be called the Driscoll, because it was their proper Driscoll High School property, is the Highlands. And boy, in just the last couple of years, they have just gone great with that, building those homes. Many have sold right now, high price points from what we're getting our reports on, and a good quality product from the Pulte Development Corporation.
Yeah, that, again, sometimes it's frustrating, but we understand change sometimes is difficult and people will push back because they're not sure of the unknown. But this project met with some opposition initially, and as it's developed, we have seen actually some of the units selling for as much as $750,000. Wow. So that was significantly above what the price point that they initially talked to us about. They have pretty much sold out, and they are aggressively finishing off the project, and they're looking at having everything completed by midsummer of next year.
And it was important for that development to fit in with the established neighborhood. Right. High residential area, a very well-established portion of the community, and what people were used to was open space and Driscoll.
Right.
And that's not there anymore because it was turned over to private development, in this case the residential project from Pulte. And so they have had to kind of really merge themselves into the established residential area.
Exactly. And they've done a good job in doing that, and I think for the most part everybody is fairly happy with what they've seen in terms of that development.
Very good. At Rawling Road and Woodland Avenue, we have Woodland Estates. We've talked about that in the past, and that should just about be wrapping up in 2023 also.
And again, those units are going for about $400,000, and they're on the last building, and that project should be completed this summer. And again, it gives other options for empty nesters and downsizing from the larger homes in town to something that's a little bit more affordable and comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about a couple of senior housing development projects. Addison has Clarendale, you mentioned them a little while ago, and there's a couple others that have been proposed. The first is Alexandra Point, the former Oxford Bank property on Lake Street, and that is being marketed right now, right? That's up for sale?
Yeah, they're looking actually to obtain some funding, some grants. If that doesn't come through, they're really kind of running on parallel tracks right now. They're looking to sell the property if the grants don't come through. Okay. So my guess, quite frankly, is that it will be sold. Right now they're looking at contractors to take down the existing building, the old Oxford Bank. Mm-hmm. So that usually is an indicator that they're getting the property ready for sale.
Okay. So we'll see about that. And then also a project that we haven't touched too much on, and that's called Addison Horizon, and it is another senior housing development, this time a little farther east than just north of Lake Street in the vicinity of Green Meadow Shopping Center.
Right, it's right behind Green Meadow Shopping Center. This is an Alden project. We've met with Alden Senior Living, and they proposed this particular development. It's a 62-unit facility that would be very similar in terms of amenities to Clarendale. And so we're looking forward to that development. They rely heavily on federal grants, and they will be applying at the end of this year or early next year. So we'll know for sure when the project is going to move, but it looks like plans will be developed through 2023 with the build out in 2024.
Let's touch base. We haven't talked about this too much lately, and that was the former Lutherbrook Child and Adolescent Center on Lake Street. It's the property's been cleared now, buildings have been taken down and so on. The village owns the property right now. Have you been working on, looking at plans? Anybody come in with any discussion on Lutherbrook right now?
Lutherbrook is a real desirable location in Addison, and that is something that we've been very cautious about in terms of making sure we have the right product there. We've talked to the Alden Group actually about possibly putting single floor, separate, or maybe dual home for senior living on that site with maybe a rec center or a restaurant on the property. We'll see if that comes to fruition, but we've had several other offers as bizarre as putting in corporate developments, manufacturing, and that'll never happen.
That's a little bizarre, you're right.
But retail, we're a little concerned about because during the pandemic, what we saw very clearly was that communities that were very heavy in retail hurt significantly in terms of financials because of lack of sales tax or revenue. Yes. So we're trying to balance to make sure that we have a mix that doesn't go too far in a direction where we're beholden to property taxes and just sales taxes.
And you have to be sensitive with the former Lutherbrook property. It faces a state highway. It has institutional surrounding it, such as Indian Trail Junior High School. There is there's environmental concerns, certainly. So you've got too many factors, none of which are complementary to each other. Yeah. And that's the challenge. But Lutherbrook was here before the Village of Addison was, so it wasn't like that back in the late 19th century.
They let us build.
That's right. They sure did.
But so there's some good ideas out there that we're researching, and hopefully in this coming year we'll have some definite plans.
We do have a couple of industrial projects to talk about, and they kind of are tandem in that they take in the bigger issue of our economy and the issues that we're facing today, but we will discuss them. First of all, Miesner Group opened or began construction of their warehouse facility on Fairbanks Street in the industrial area, a reuse of property from its prior use as the headquarters for the Ray Graham Association. So that's taking place. Simultaneously, we are seeing some new use at what was planned for the Amazon facility out on Lake Street. So kind of give us an update on why these two projects were so critical in keeping them and having them developed in Addison.
Well, I think there's a lot of things that come into play. Addison is the fourth largest industrial park in the state of Illinois. That's something that we're proud of and something that we rely on in terms of balancing our budget and making sure that we have a healthy forecast going forward. The issue of the pandemic and supply chain has become very, very evident in terms of we've relied for a lot of years on offshore manufacturing. And I think if we've learned anything through the pandemic is that's not working. When you have to wait a year and a half to get parts for a car or anything that you're looking for, that's a problem here. And there certainly has been a market move to bring stuff back onshore. And the manufacturing is something that's critical, but that then requires manufacturing plants. It requires warehouses. It requires us to relook at our infrastructure to make sure that we can accommodate that return to states in terms of our build out and manufacturing needs. Pharmaceuticals is another good example. So we've realized that the future really is looking at the availability of space, and warehouse space has become a prime concern and a very hot item on the marketplace. So looking at what space we have available, buildable space in town, and what is the best and highest use becomes important. So that's a focus that we've really looked at is warehouse and manufacturing needs to continue to grow. And so those two projects, the Amazon project, Amazon I think overextended during the pandemic, and they bought a lot of property and they had a lot of expectation for growth and development. That's somewhat been mitigated with a return to normal or close to return to normal.
The new normal.
Yeah. So what Amazon announced several weeks ago actually is that they were going to sublet a lot of the properties that they had already purchased or had leased. So, and that's the case with the Addison warehouse.
I see.
So we'll be seeing a sublet group coming into that area. We haven't been told at this point who or what, but we're looking forward to that. The same with the Misner Group. That is a property that is in the industrial area. It had the potential for growth and development, and that became really a win-win because Ray Graham was looking to sell the property. They were looking at the financial needs of their association and being able to work with the Misner Group and with Ray Graham to broker this deal and to come up with a warehouse that was good for the village and a price that was good for Ray Graham, created a win-win for all of us. So.
What does this do about the employment situation in the community or the workforce, which you work very diligently on with your team and your committee? Does that spur new job growth? These are businesses that need a certain skill set. Warehouses very often rely on truck delivery in and out of their facility. So there's a lot that's involved. So when you see that warehouse built, you have to realize that people need to work in that warehouse. It's not 100% automated as that Amazon plan was. There still need to be people there. So are they job generators, basically? Do they help your economic status within the community by getting people to work or in certain skill sets?
Well, that's the good news and the bad news. Yeah, they do generate jobs, but the biggest issue that we're facing right now throughout the country is developing a workforce to take those jobs. If you drive through our industrial park area, virtually every business has a help wanted sign. And so one of the big focuses that we've been working on over the years is developing job career opportunities, training opportunities, where we can put labor force into our businesses and meet the need. And as more and more of the industrial comes back to onshore, that need is exacerbated, and so both physical buildings as well as workers for those buildings becomes a very important focus for us.
That's very true. We have some roadway projects which have finally been completed thanks to the diligent work of our contractors, because they were delayed this year in 2022, and our motor fuel tax dollars came back to Addison as they always do, and the village was able to get a lot of road work done because that's really important. People want to see good quality roads. It's one of the essential services that Addison provides.
Well, we've got well over 100 miles of road in our community, and we try to do a 20-year rotation where every 20 years roads are totally rebuilt. And but obviously, in the interim, there's repairs, patches, and some roads wear quicker than others because of utilization. So we really focus on having that rotation and assessing different areas of town. And we did a study several years ago, and there's a planned replacement and repair schedule that we have in place. A lot of the work, though, is extremely expensive, and we rely very heavily on the motor fuel tax revenues to help fund that, as well as grants, federal and state grants, to provide assistance in that. But we have several projects that are just completing. The one that you referenced, a lot of the resurfacing was put on hold because of a work stoppage that impacted a lot of communities, and that's been resolved. And as of last week, actually, we just completed all of the projects.
Just in time.
Yeah. Just
ready for snow, perhaps, right. Also, some projects took place with the help of some federal and state funding for roads in the Kingery West area, and they qualified for a lot of money, and also they were done at the same time as a plan for water main replacement in some of the other neighborhoods as well. So road projects, water main replacement. We've talked about this before. Get your water mains replaced before you finish the nice new road, and then you can get the nice build over and the layover done. And get those water mains replaced, because many of them are very antiquated. So just in Kingery West alone, with the community development block grant and the state funding, was completed under budget, just under $1.1 million. And that's great for a road project like that.
Well, and again, like I said, they're very expensive, and we have to plan ahead and make sure that we're coordinating projects. If there's an issue with water lines, that then takes priority, and we have to reassess where we're going to do the next road repair and upgrades.
Very much so. There was a very unique project that is being planned right now, and it's unique because it was really resident initiated. And I'd like for you to talk about what's going to be happening in the Ardmore Armitage area, because they're getting some very desperately needed sidewalks in that area. And it was a resident that brought it to your attention.
We had a resident that came to us, and there's a lot of areas in town that chose not to have sidewalks. When their subdivisions were built, they had the option, and a lot of them felt that they wanted the rustic,
kind of a rural
area look. And so there are areas of Addison that don't have sidewalks by choice. And the problem was that in the Armitage area, their school obviously draws a lot of kids, and became a safety issue. And this parent spoke to us about the fact that their children, as well as the neighbors, were walking on the street to get to school. And clearly it was a concern for them as well as for us. We were able to research and find that the federal government has a Safe Routes to School program, funding program. And with the help of the neighbors, information from them, and paperwork that we were able to pull together, we applied for a grant and were able to get a grant that allowed us to subsidize a good portion of the project and the sidewalks are going in this year. And when I say this year, 2023.
In 23, sure. Mm-hmm.
But that is, I think a good example of identifying needs in the community, working with the community, and coming up with solutions that are good for everyone.
Right. Some other road projects, we'll just kind of do this in a quick lightning round here. Kings Point is going to see reconstruction and some patching with hopefully some state transportation funds coming into that area, in the Kings Point area, well needed. And then Lombard Road is on deck for some future work in 2024. So this is down the ways a little bit now, with resurfacing kind of both the north and south legs down to Fullerton Avenue, and then from Army Trail Road up to Lake Street. So be on the lookout, Lombard Road motorists, they're coming to get you.
Sure, they're going to love that. But again, you look at each one of these projects, and all of them are in excess of $1 million each. So it's a real heavy burden, and I know it's an inconvenience to the people who use those roads, but keeping roads in good condition is, job one. Yep. And but we have to be very frugal and look at what the needs are at the highest level and go from there.
And you have to be ready to go with these projects. Yeah. Several years ago, the term came up called shovel ready, right? And if you're not ready, somebody else is going to take that money, that grant money. The state and the federal governments only have so much to parcel out to local road projects, because they have county road projects and they have federal road projects, on and on. And if a municipality is not ready to go, your chance is gone, and it's unlikely you're going to get that back anytime soon. And
you're looking at 3 to 5 years
for a window
in the future.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you really do have to plan ahead, know what the needs are. Right. And
if it's a matching grant, which means there needs to be local dollars attached to it, then you folks at the village board have to have that in your budget.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the next 12 months, but it could be 24, 36 months down the line. But you have to have it ready to go, and you have to know you're going to have the revenue for it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Quite a balancing act. We'll wrap up our community development discussion with just a couple things in relation to code enforcement. And one is we were able to re-establish the commercial and industrial inspection program. Mm-hmm. Staffing was made available, and now you have crews that are out, I think, just about every day of the week practically, making sure that those commercial and industrial properties are kept to the highest, best standard in keeping with what is expected in our community and the codes that we have.
Back in the 50s, actually, the then village board realized the importance of industrial development. Mm-hmm. And so they started the development of our industrial complex. That was fairly visionary, because other communities weren't really looking at industrial as a viable resource for a community. So we started with the development of our industrial complex on Addison Road moving west. So over the years, it's expanded from Addison Road all the way out to Swift Road. And the farther west you go, the more modern the facilities are, and the more contemporary in terms of meeting modern needs as far as turn lane radiuses and the heights of the buildings, the number of docks, those types of things that are critical to modern delivery systems and manufacturing. The east side of our industrial area is aging and is somewhat outdated, so we felt very strongly that making sure we maintain standards through inspections and keeping it updated as much as possible was critical. So we reestablished our inspection programs and worked very closely with the owners of the properties to do whatever we can to assist them in keeping contemporary and meeting the modern needs and making their businesses viable.
Mm-hmm. So that's done on a routine basis, and just this year, with the inspection reports that have come in, it looked like about 42% of those businesses that were inspected had no violations whatsoever. Right. And so that's thanks to those corporate citizens who keep their properties up, and for those who needed the extra work, they got that. We finally have rolled out, now on behalf of my fellow department heads, they're very happy to report that CityView is now online at the end of December here, ready to go, and it's an online portal that allows a lot of e-governance, e-commerce right from the Village of Addison website. You can do a lot with this system. Do they brief you on the great things now that CityView are all about?
Well, that's all we've been talking about for 5 years,
Yeah,
actually.
right.
It's been a long time in coming. We made a decision several years ago that we needed to look at our entire IT utilization. And we, at some points, were very backward in utilizing computerization in all of our departments. CityView gets us really up to current technology, and the ability for residents as well as for our staff to use that technology to do reports, to fill out forms, requisitions, permit applications, a whole series of things online, which minimizes the need to actually come to Village Hall. It makes report writing and the daily operations of our staff much more easier. And so, yeah, we've taken a giant step into the future by implementing. And CityView actually just went live this last week. Yeah. So
they were all happy about something, and that's what it wound up being. So
they were happy, but part of it was they were holding their breath too.
Yeah, right.
But no, this is a huge step forward for our residents as well as for our staff, and it will save money in the long run for operational efficiency.
It's efficiency,
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's efficiency there. There's the ability to communicate within the staff levels. They use technology for their field reports now. That was unheard of. We were still doing things by paper and pencil, and that just was very inefficient.
Inspectors could actually do on an iPad the full report and have it ready for the homeowner or the apartment building owner on site, and so things are much easier to accomplish with this program.
Well, communities don't operate, Mayor Veenstra, without good infrastructure and the backbone of a community. And these are the things that you don't know you've got them until all of a sudden there's a problem, and then you really do miss them. So one project out of our Public Works Department in Environmental Services was the completion of a huge $7 million plus project to replace something called an anaerobic digester. Now, between me and you, we don't really know everything there is to know about anaerobic digesters, but they're really important to have. And congratulations to all the crews there, because they got the work done this year. It's completed at the North Plant.
And again, I mean, that's something that, it breaks down waste. And part of the treatment plant function is to do that so that water can be replaced back into the streams and all that, and the digester is a critical part of that. And we looked at $7.2 million and cringed, but it's something that you have to do, and they did a great job in making that project happen.
And again, another funding was through a low-interest loan from Illinois EPA, which Addison has taken advantage of many times. Also, right now, as we speak, a Christmas gift to our community, new water meters are coming, folks, and perhaps you've had your water meter replaced, and if you haven't, it'll be coming very soon. Big project, because there's 10,000, I'm thinking in terms of dollars here, 10,000 water meters in the community that need to be replaced.
Yeah. We've gotten about 2,000 replaced as of today. It's a huge advantage. It's computer technology. It allows the village, if the residents want to do it, there's an option for the residents. We don't want to be intrusive, but we can actually contact them and let them know that their usage is running higher than normal, and that there may be a leak or a problem in the line that they need to be looking at. It gives us a lot of capability of really doing on-the-spot assessments of what's going on in the system, and so the technology is really much better than what we've used in the past, and it gives us as well as our residents a lot of advantages in terms of being able to maintain a appropriate use of our water supply.
Let's talk a little bit about environmental sustainability. Addison hosted 2 Recycling Day events, April 2nd and October 15th. There's another one coming up in March of 2023.
Right.
These one-day, half-day events actually at Addison Trail High School have proven pretty successful. People know what to do. They look forward to it. It's very easy. It operates kind of on the station concept. You just drive along and drop off your recyclables. They're out of your car and out of your life, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So we seem to have a good process going with that.
And that was kind of an outgrowth of the digester project when we had to close down the recycling plant that we had on the North Treatment Plant because of the work that was being done. This was an option that we looked at, and we realized that it was actually a much more successful event and seemed to be easier for our residents to access than what we had been doing in the past. So yeah, the sustainability is critical, and this we think is a good way of doing it. And we're in partnership with Republic, which is our waste hauler, and the VFW and other agencies that are all participating in it. So it really becomes a community event.
And for that, the Village of Addison was honored by DuPage County and the Scarce Recycling Agency here in DuPage with the Earth Flag and the Water Quality Flag, and presentations were made this past September. And that's quite an honor. There's a lot of work that goes into that. They're not to be taken lightly. And those flags and honors were presented to the Village of Addison this past fall for all of these sustainability projects that happen, both within our internal operations and outward facing into the greater community of Addison.
Yeah, and Scarce, actually, we were very proud that they were based in Glen Ellen, and several years ago, about 3 years ago, they relocated to Addison, so they're one of our own, but they have been leading the industry in terms of looking at environmental issues and educational programs, and so we're proud to have them in town, but the work that they do and being able to be recognized by them for the work we do was a big honor. And it was really consistent with last year we were awarded the Culture of Health Prize from the
Robert Wood Johnson.
I was going to say Howard Johnson.
Yeah, no, different
Robert Wood
outfit.
Johnson, yeah. And so, you know, it all kind of fits into what we've been doing as a community in terms of health and opportunities to make the earth a little bit safer for everyone.
Right. In fact, this past year, keeping in mind of sustainability, a lot of streetlights along the major roadways, they began with Lake Street first, have been replaced now with LED lighting. They're much more energy efficient, longer lifespan, better use of that technology, and that also came through some rebate funding through ComEd. So a good partnership there.
And you know, we actually started a pilot program several years ago on the Heritage Subdivision. And that was the first where we were experimenting with the LEDs to see how they worked, if they were acceptable to the community, and that's expanded then into what we're doing now.
Let's touch on some financial issues and the economics of running the village. First of all, there was a pretty good, strong finish of the fiscal year 2022, and a lot of that had to do with, I guess, the positive side of the pandemic.
Yeah, actually, I think we've learned a lot through the pandemic. Obviously, the manufacturing issues that we talked about. But what we saw also is that the mix of businesses is critical. And where we've had a lot of citizens ask, why don't we have big box stores? Why don't we have those stores like they have in Oak Brook or in Lombard or in Woodfield? And we have Walmart, we have Sam's. When you looked at the downturn and the issues through the pandemic, the retail stores took the biggest hit, and the communities like the Oak Brooks and all that, they had some financial problems that they had to deal with because of that downturn. We actually saw the Walmarts and the Sam's, those were the go-to places when the economy goes down. It's the place where people can get what they need at good prices and
as efficiently as possible.
So we were in a really good position because we don't have a lot of retail, but the retail we have is very sustainable. And so we have a good balance. And then the projects that we've talked about, we were very, very conscious about going out for grants and getting subsidies from the government to help fund those projects. So being fiscally responsible, looking at what's available through grants and funding outside of the village, as well as making sure we have a good mix of businesses in town, gives us a very sound basis, and we've done well throughout.
We also were able to abate in excess of $2 million in property taxes. Very important when you get your property tax bill next spring. You better believe it, because you will not see a certain amount of that $2 million reflected back onto your property taxes, because it was able to be paid for through things like sales tax revenue, which is very important. And the new online portal for business licensing, which we talked about with CityView a little while ago, was launched in late 2022. Many of these projects were under the stewardship of our finance director and village treasurer, Roseanne Benson, who we said goodbye to in December because Roseanne is retiring from her service with the village. And she shepherded all of these projects that we just talked about.
Roseanne gave us 22 years of dedicated quality service that allowed us to do the things that we have done in growth and development. And this year was a good example. We ended up with a $5 million surplus because of her frugality and making sure that the investments that we've made, the things that we have done, allowed us to get the best bang for the buck.
We really do wish Roseanne well in her retirement, and hope that she's not a stranger, comes back to visit us.
Well, she's in town, so we know where to find her.
You bet. Over on the police side, one big project took place, and it was actually a cooperative with DuPage County and Addison, and that was the launch of the new 211 phone referral system that allows people to call 24/7 and get a whole host of services and referrals to services that they might not otherwise be able to have access to. Addison is a partner with that because of the Addison Consolidated Dispatch Center.
Right. The program, the 211, several states have had that in place for a while. Illinois implemented it. DuPage County rolled it out several weeks ago, actually. And it really is designed for people who have everything from psychological crises to financial needs, housing needs, just about anything. The buzz phrase is, if you don't know what number to call 211. So the help is there, and our ACDC call center is the place that takes all the calls after hours, weekends, and on holidays. So they went through training to be able to provide the information and the referral service available. And we're very proud that Addison was chosen to be part of this program. So,
over on the your Workforce Development Committee, the Mayor's Workforce Development Committee, you've launched a lot of new services. Many of them are online services right now. You and Alyssa Smith in your office have been working on this. A business portal, a business search portal is available now through the website. You have your newsletter, and you have a property search and analysis and intelligence, all online, all accessible. Anyone can access it, really, but it is meant to be a business resource, so business can communicate sometimes with other businesses in the community. Something that you detected was kind of a gap in our services many years ago.
Yeah, one of the things that, because we have such a large industrial complex in a business area, there wasn't a lot of connectivity, and what we were seeing is businesses were outsourcing and subbing out work to businesses outside of our community. Elk Grove, outside of this, of course that, keep the business local. And that wasn't happening, and it was costing a lot of the businesses more money than they really needed to be spending on it. So creating portals and creating ways of articulating and getting to know what actually is happening in Addison and what's available in Addison was critical for us. And so Alyssa's worked extremely hard in building these different outlets, whether it's newsletters to update the businesses and what's going on in the community, whether it's programs that alert our community to what's available. That's all part of an information structure that we're creating for our businesses and our residents.
In fact, during National Apprenticeship Week in November, you hosted about 30 stakeholders from the community at a networking event. We're carrying that here on ACTV, and it really shed a huge light. A lot of things I learned there about how business and the community are working together. These pilot apprenticeship programs are amazing. In fact, there was a testimonial given by a gentleman who's now working at SWD, I believe, and how he went from kind of not having a whole lot of direction and coming out of school to where he's training new apprentices at SWD was just amazing. So full of success stories. You've got your partnership with Addison Trail High School, with the Regional Office of Education. College of DuPage, of course, is sort of your lead with all of this. So you've really done a lot with that workforce development concept in just these last several years that you've been in office, that you've shepherded this project into the community. Well,
the future of our community, the economics of our community really depend on that availability of a workforce. And we have a lot of new residents coming into our community, a lot of them from other countries, and giving them the skill sets and the ability to get careers, not just jobs, is critical for the socioeconomics of them and their families, but also of our community.
Well, we'll take a moment now, I don't know if this is shameless publicity or not, to kind of turn the spotlight on what we do here at Addison Community Television in the area of community relations. And speaking of ACTV, very proud that we marked our 40th anniversary of being on the air this year. And many of us, you and I both, and a lot of other folks have been around for all that entire time. But I think it shows the ability for a community to take kind of a new concept. People didn't know quite what we were going to be doing 40 years ago, and we didn't have a whole lot of planning back then, but to chart the path that we have today to keep our community, our residents informed of what is happening right within their town, make it accessible, working now in new forms of technology, the accessibility of our programming and our channel that way. But always maintaining our roots to say, but we always began as local cable programming, and we still do that to this day. This program itself, what we're doing right now, dates back over 3 decades. So there's a lot to be said about keeping ACTV up and operating and on the air, thanks to our cable operators that have worked in the community, and certainly the leadership of you and the village board over these last 40 years. So we're grateful for that.
Well, you know, I think Addison ACTV is really a good example of the creativity and the vision that the community has shown over the last 40 years. Addison does a lot of things that we don't brag about, and other communities, you know, they wave the flag and we're going, yeah, we did that 20 years ago. There's a lot to be proud of in our community, and ACTV certainly is, you know, part of that. But I think a lot of the focus that we've been looking at and working on, whether it's the Village Green and things like Rockin' Wheels and the igloos that we're doing now for the holiday season, those are things that bring attention to our community. And I think one of the real important things is that we as residents need to understand what Addison is about and what we have and what we've done and what we continue to do, and be proud of it and take part in it instead of sitting back and just saying, oh, well, it's Addison. Addison's a special place.
Our historical museum and our historical district had some accomplishments this year. They achieved bronze level status in their work to become accredited as a historical museum at a national level, and they're working very hard with a committee based of the members of the Historical Commission and society, volunteers, to work on their accreditation through the STEPS program. We've created something called a history theater, just launched here at the end of December, that allows people to come in and view videos and get an orientation of the historical district and the building. So you have really made sure that the Historical Museum campus is up and operating and is accessible to hundreds of people, school children and seniors and adults and everybody who wants to come and visit it and take a look at the preservation of our heritage and the history that we have in the community.
And that's a critical part of being proud of our community, is knowing where we've come from and who we are. And so, yeah, that is an important piece of the entire puzzle.
Speaking of ACTV programming and your workforce development project, we began a series called Behind the Advantage here in 2022. We've featured about 8 or 10 businesses in the community, commercial, industrial, service businesses, all of which have been featured in 2.5 minute vignettes that have appeared here on ACTV and also through our social media channels as well, and really connecting the residential community to our businesses as well. And they're very unique programs produced by Alyssa Smith and compiled and edited by Mike Tynes, so that it gives our residents the opportunity to learn more about the business community that we have in Addison.
And we've had new businesses coming in saying, hey, can we be part of that?
Right.
So it's working. Yeah.
Well, this year we also produced a marketing video that has been seen here on ACTV, and it's called Addison, A Place to Work, Live, and Grow. And the unique part about this is it was put together in just a series of several weeks, and it also is very intergovernmental, very encompassing of our community, and a lot of people had a great hand in scripting all of that together. And it's actually been seen now in a number of settings, is my understanding,
it has,
to attract realtors and people who could potentially be moving to Addison.
And again, I mean, it ties it all together, you know, being proud of our community, being able to sell all of the positives to our residents as well as to our external customers, people coming into town, people contemplating moving into town. We need to do that. And our intergovernmental cooperation made this possible by all of the different agencies that make Addison the whole community that it is participated. So, you know, I think it came off very well, and something that I think will help us sell our community to realtors and, you know, outside businesses looking for a place to come.
Well, we've covered so many discussion topics and projects that are happening in Addison, have happened during 2022, and looking forward to the new year. If you have questions about any of these projects we've talked about, or something else that has come up maybe we didn't get a chance to discuss today in our year in review discussion with Mayor Veenstra, this is your opportunity coming up now in January to tune in and take part in the 16th annual Shape of Addison Town Hall meeting presented by Itasca Bank and Trust Company. This year's program will be on Wednesday, January 25th, 2023. Begins at 7 o'clock in the evening in the boardroom of the Addison Village Hall. It is open to the public. You can come and hear reports from 7 taxing bodies, their board presidents, and then also ask a question and hear the response. If you can't make it out in person that night, you can watch live here on Addison Community Television. You can watch it streamed live on addisonadvantage.org and the Village of Addison's YouTube channel, Village Addison. Well, Mayor, we come to the end of our program, and as we head right into 2023, give you this opportunity to send your greetings of the season to our residents of Addison.
You know, it's been a good year because people have worked together, and I think we've all taken a deep breath that the pandemic scare is pretty much over, and we're moving forward. And so I just want to wish everyone the merriest of holidays and health and happiness going into 2023. I think 22 was a good year. 23 is going to be an even better year. So happy holidays to everyone, and best wishes.
Thank you very much, Mayor Veenstra, for being with us, and happy holidays to you and your family.
You too.
And now for all of us here at Addison Community Television, in this our 40th year of local cable programming, Don Weiss wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. See you again in 2023.